Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Soul Land 2 Peerless Tangmen based on novel. So let's start. When these two forces work together, even a powerful entity like the Holy Ghost Church had to be wary, much less an ordinary person. Other than the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineer Legion, the Empire also had 4 other Beast Lord ranked Soul Engineer Legions. They were the Imperial Dragon Soul Engineer Legion, the Terraclaw Soul Engineer Legion, the Fire Phoenix Soul Engineer Legion, and the Evil Eye Tyrant Soul Engineer Legion. These 4 Soul Engineering Legions were all named after powerful kings among soul beasts. Among them, Imperial Dragon referred to the purple brilliant heaven-destroying dragon. This was a powerful, but extinct soul beast. In the Sun Moon Empire's imperial family, some of its scions possessed this powerful bloodline martial soul. One of the main reasons that Shu Tianran was able to ascend to the throne was that he inherited this martial soul, unlike the sun that the other descendants of the imperial family possessed. His purple brilliant heaven-destroying dragon and the earth dragon sect's bloodline martial soul, ruby dragons, were similar in some aspects, but they were also distinctly different from any anther. The element of the ruby dragons was annihilation, while the element of the purple brilliant heaven-destroying dragons was catastrophe, which was more tyrannical than the ruby dragon's annihilation. Legend had it that the purple brilliant heaven-destroying dragon's ancestor was a second dragon, which had accompanied the dragon god, and was also known as the ancestor of the second dragons. However, as it was too destructive, it was personally destroyed by the dragon god. The Terraclaw Soul Engineer Legion was naturally named after the dark golden Terraclaw bear. This terrifying beast was legendary in all countries. The Fire Phoenix Soul Engineer Legion took its name from the mythical Fire Phoenix. It only recruited female soul engineers, and its current leader was the Empress of the Sun Moon Empire, Zhu Zi. The last legion, the Evil Eye Tyrant Soul Engineer Legion, was named after the only one of the 10 great savage beasts that lived in the Sun Moon Empire's borders, the Evil Eye Tyrant King. This beast was ranked second among the 10 great savage beasts, and was infamous throughout the entire Sun Moon continent. It had hidden itself, and no one knew if it was alive or dead. However, since the Sun Moon Empire decided to name an entire legion after it because of its ferocity, one could tell how fearsome it was. There was a legend surrounding the Evil Eye Tyrant King. When the Sun Moon continent first crashed into the Doluo continent, the Evil Eye Tyrant King once went to the Great Star Do Forest to find the beast god, Di Qian. No one knew what happened between the Evil Eye Tyrant King and the beast god, but when the former returned to the Sun Moon Empire, it vanished without a trace. Di Qian was still the beast god, and was still ranked first among the 10 great savage beasts. However, after that battle, the Evil Eye Tyrant King was able to retreat in one piece from the Great Star Do Forest, establishing its title as the second most powerful beast among the 10 great savage beasts. The 4 Soul Engineer Legions each had their specialties. For example, the Fire Phoenix Soul Engineer Legion was all female. The Terraclaw Soul Engineer Legion was filled with buff men, the Imperial Dragon Soul Engineer Legion was the best at fighting, and the Evil Eye Tyrant Soul Engineer Legion specialized in speed. To join any of them, one soul power had to be at least rank 40, which was the equivalent of a soul ancestor. Each Beast Lord ranked Soul Engineer Legion had 300 members. Other than Zhu Zi, who led the Fire Phoenix Soul Engineer Legion, the other Legion commanders were all Class 9 Soul Engineers. The Vice Legion commander of the Fire Phoenix Soul Engineer Legion was a Class 9 Soul Engineer, too. Together with the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineer Legion, they were collectively known as the hand that protects the nation. They were the 5 pillars which supported the Sun Moon Empire. Other than these 5 Soul Engineer Legions, the other Soul Engineer Legions had lower entry requirements. They were comprised of 500 men each, and as long as one had more than 2 soul rings, one could join. Right now, there were 6 of these legions, totaling 3,000 men, all stationed in different locations. Other than them, the major regional armies of the Sun Moon Empire each recruited legions of soul engineers, too. However, their organization was not standardized, and even the imperial family could not control all of them. Many of them belonged to the nobility, like the rebellious ones Huo Yuhao and the others had met earlier on. On the battlefield, even a low-level soul engineer legion was stronger than a cavalry legion of 10,000 men. They were highly destructive, and because they were few in number, they could use their soul tools very flexibly. Normally, a single Soul Engineer Legion could decide the outcome of a battle. The 5 major Soul Engineer Legions could also turn into aerial Soul Engineers. Their many years of training allowed them to work together seamlessly, and their morale was strong. Commanded by top Soul engineers, they would be the backbone of the Sun Moon Empire's future conquests. Around Sunrise City, which seemed plain and ordinary, the Sun Moon Empire had stationed 2 of the 6 Soul Engineer legions, each of which comprised 500 men. This was a testament to the importance of Sunrise City to the Sun Moon Empire. Furthermore, this was just its outer city defenses. Huo Yuhao and his companions had reached the outskirts of Sunrise City one day ago, but they were in no rush to enter it. Instead, they intermingled with a trade delegation and stayed outside the city for a day. With Huo Yuhao present, it was akin to having a highly effective surveillance soul tool. Despite the Sun Moon Empire's technological prowess, no soul tool could rival Huo Yuhao's spiritual detection when it came to surveillance. After his closed-door cultivation, Huo Yuhao had merged all his skills together. He had also obtained a deeper understanding of his concrete material realm spiritual power. Right now, he was scanning the entire area. He was able to detect anything within a 1,500-meter radius. If he concentrated his spiritual power in a particular direction, he would be able to sense everything there, be it the differences in obstacles, terrain, or the weather, up to a distance of 5,000 to 7,000 meters. This was without using his Eye of Destiny. After a night's rest, Huo Yuhao was able to gather enough intelligence. He was well aware that there were powerful people guarding the captured Soul Masters. To avoid startling them, he did not try to survey inside the city. There were many different types of martial souls, and each day brought new changes to the development of soul engineering. He could not be sure that no one from the Sun Moon Empire would be able to sense the presence of his spiritual power, and so he acted very cautiously. If they failed this time, their chances of success next time would be even tinier. There were only 7 of them there. It was impossible to win based on brute force alone. Hence, they had to depend on the opportunity Shrek Academy created for them, as well as their own wits. After a night's worth of detection, Huo Yuhao discovered that the 2 Soul Engineer legions of 500 men were divided into 10 groups. These were stationed at various locations outside Sunrise City. Sunrise City was surrounded by open plains. All 1,000 Soul Engineers had taken up positions in the plains. Soul cannons, which were weak individually, were deployed in huge quantities around the city. There were also some high-level soul tools nearby. One could say that Sunrise City, in its current state, was akin to a city under threat of death. If the army of Soul Engineers wished, they could level the city in a very short time. They were not the problematic ones, though. Those were the many surveillance soul tools on the walls of Sunrise City. After one scan, Huo Yuhao found out that they comprised long-range all-terrain soul detectors, short-range thermal detectors, medium-range aerial soul detectors, triggered targeting type soul tools, and a huge amount of high-altitude surveillance soul tools. One could say that even if a fly flew out from Sunrise City, the Soul Engineers in charge of these surveillance soul tools would be able to detect it. Huo Yuhao could conceal himself with imitation, and he could use his ultimate ice to prevent his body heat from being picked up by the short-range thermal detectors. However, that was all he could do. There was nothing he could do against the triggered targeting type soul tools. That type of soul tool sensed the fluctuations of one's soul power. When he used his imitation and ultimate ice, his soul power would definitely fluctuate. At that moment, if his foes were locked onto his location, Huo Yuhao would be bombarded by every single Soul Engineer stationed outside. This was akin to being carpet-bombed. With the high density of Soul Engineers nearby, there was no way he could escape. Yuhao, what can we do? After breakfast, the Tang sect discussed this issue in hushed voices. At this moment, a long line had already formed outside Sunrise City. Right now, anyone entering or leaving Sunrise City would be searched and screened. This was why there were trade delegations stationed outside the city. Searching one such delegation would require a whole day, or even more. Huo Yuhao and the rest were able to blend in with these trade delegations. As there were many traders, no one had noticed them. Huo Yuhao said, "I've scanned this place carefully. It's impossible to sneak inside, as there are too many surveillance soul tools. Almost every type of surveillance soul tool is present. It'll be troublesome to go in via the city gate, as they have soul power detectors, which can sense the fluctuations in our soul power. They can then determine our strength based on our soul power fluctuations." Shu Sansha frowned and said, "It's already been a few months, and yet they're still so vigilant. We can't even enter the city like this. How can we save them? Furthermore, they captured over 600 people. Even if we do enter, can we save them all? Escape will be difficult too, with so many Soul engineers both in and around the city. Can we even escape? Huo Yuhao said, it's difficult indeed, but there's still a chance. We need to react accordingly. We'll go in, swords waving, Ji Juechen said coolly. Shu Sanxia waved at him and said, bye-bye. Ji Juechen leered at him, but did not make a move. He was a sword fanatic, not a fool. Nan Qiuqiu was the most anxious at the moment. She knew that her mother was imprisoned inside the city, but she could not enter it to save her. It would take a miracle to calm her down. Right now, she was like an ant on a frying pan. If not for Yi Gai's consolation, she might actually have tried to fight her way inside. Shu Sanxia looked at Huo Yuhao, who was in deep thought, and said, Yuhao, you have a plan, right? Huo Yuhao said, there's no chance, so we have to make a chance. The academy has already attacked, but the news has yet to reach this city. The Heavenly Soul Empire and the Star Luo Empire will respond accordingly. The palace will know of this as soon as possible. With the tense situation at the border, the Sun Moon Empire has a few choices. First, they can take the prisoners here to the front line as hostages. Second, if they are cruel, they'll kill them straight away. Third, they can station more soldiers and Soul Engineer legions at the border. I feel that the first and third options are the most possible ones. After all, the Sun Moon Empire's war preparations are not yet finished. If not, they would have already killed all the people they have imprisoned. We have to enter before news of the attack reaches here, and find opportunities to strike. What we aim to do is not to rescue them, but to help them regain their fighting abilities. As long as we're able to do so, we'll stand a much better chance. Shu Sanxia nodded and said, right, but how can we get in? Huo Yuhao smiled slightly and said, let me think. If we can't even enter the gate, we would have wasted all our ultimate soldier training, right? You lot follow the trade delegation into the city, and I'll strike when they start searching you. At that time, the soldiers can only respond in one way, and that will be to stop the search and close the gates. Then, you guys can. As he spoke, Huo Yuhao muttered a few quiet words into everyone's ears. They all nodded in agreement. If our plan fails or we're exposed, it'll all depend on you to save the day, second senior brother, Huo Yuhao said to Hikaitu. Okay, that's fine with me. However, how do you plan to enter the city, little junior brother? Hikaitu inquired. A light shone in Huo Yuhao's eyes as he replied, don't worry, I have my ways. I'll go first. Be careful, everyone. With that, he turned to leave. Mingling with the trade delegation, he disappeared without a trace. The others also intermingled with the trade delegation, and sauntered slowly toward the city gate as they prepared for inspection. Right now, everyone from the Tang sect was in disguise. For example, Hikaitu now had hair on his head, Shu Sanxia had a scar on his face, and Yi Gai and Nan Qiuqiu were disguised as villagers, a far cry from their usual beautiful selves. The line moved forward slowly. It was almost noon at this point, and many in the queue were consuming their rations. Under Huo Yuhao's instructions, those from the Tang sect were in no rush. They followed the others patiently. At this moment, a group of soldiers on horseback dashed toward them from afar. Sand and dust flew into the air, and the traders who were in the queue had no choice but to dodge them. It was a chaotic scene. Shu Sanxia and Hikaitu exchanged a look. The two of them had the same thought. Maybe news from the border has finally reached them. However, what will its impact be? This depends on the amount of pressure Elder Xian is exerting at the border. After another 2 hours, it was finally the Tang sect's turn. Among the 6 of them, Yi Gai and Nan Qiuqiu stood at the front. At this moment, the 2 women were dressed as if they had come from the countryside. Nan Qiuqiu's dress was grey and very plain. Her clear face was dotted with freckles, and she looked very pitiable and moving. Yi Gai was slightly taller than her, but Huo Yuhao made her look pitiful too. The 2 women walked side by side. Their simple, rural-looking outfits and their pitiful demeanor complemented their overall look. The 2 of you, come over here, said a soldier who was stationed outside the gates, waving at them. Nan Qiuqiu and Yi Gai each had a basket. When they heard his words, they walked over immediately. At that moment, the 2 of them could not help but feel nervous. The soldiers were nothing, but there were so many surveillance soul tools around them, and 2 soul engineer legions outside the city. This was too much of a threat to them. Nan Qiuqiu swore in her heart, where is that bastard Huo Yuhao? It's almost our turn. There was a huge soul power detector at the gate. With just one scan, it would detect the presence and fluctuations of one's soul power. Brother, will this hurt us? Nan Qiuqiu asked the soldier timidly. The gate was manned by a small team of 20 soldiers. They were split into 2 shifts, and the team leader was the one who spoke to Nan Qiuqiu and Yi Gai. He was armored, and a long sword dangled by his side. He looked cool and impressive, but he was ultimately still a hot-headed young man. At his age, he was naturally hormonally charged. When he saw the pretty Nan Qiuqiu, his hard expression softened visibly. It's fine. You'll just be scanned by the soul power detector. It won't hurt you at all. Just maintain this position, go on. Thank you so much, brother. You're so handsome, said Nan Qiuqiu. She said the last bit softly as she turned to look at him, batting her eyelashes. The small team leader's heart skipped a beat as he asked, "Where are you from, sister?" "You're pretty too." Nan Qiuqiu said shyly, "I'm from Radiant City. I live in its outskirts. Normally, I'll help my family in the fields and with the chores. I don't remember Sunrise City's security being so tight." "What happened?" The small team leader looked at Nan Qiuqiu staring at him in pure admiration, and could not help but feel pleased with himself as he said, "There were some incidents in the city, so things are a lot more troublesome right now. It's fine. I'll order my men to move faster. You can go in as a group." "Wow, brother, you're an official. No wonder you look so special," Yi Gai interjected from the side. The small team leader smiled and said, "I'm just a low-ranked one." Go, are the 2 of you sisters?" Nan Qiuqiu nodded and said, "That's right. She's my cousin. There are 6 of us, as we wouldn't dare to travel by ourselves. Those 3 over there are my uncles, and that's my aunt." As she spoke, she pointed at Shusansha, He Kai-tu, Ji Juechen, and Jing Ziyan. "There are 6 of you, right? Go and get checked together. I'll tell them to be faster. We're all trying to make a living. No one has it easy," said the small team leader. Evidently, he was giddy from Nan Qiuqiu and Yi Gai's praises and admiration. Instantly, he became much more magnanimous. Nan Qiuqiu's beautiful eyes shone and she said, "Brother, you're so nice. Are you married?" When she said the last bit, it was barely louder than a whisper. However, the team leader heard it. "Married? I'm a poor soldier. Who would want me?" the team leader chuckled. Nan Qiuqiu said in a rush, "Don't say that. Brother, you are so manly. How can someone not like you? I shan't talk anymore, as I'm in a rush. Here, take this." As she spoke, she took out a coarse piece of paper and a pencil from her basket. She wrote a few messy words on it before handing it over to the team leader. Faced with Nan Qiuqiu's watery gaze, the team leader's heart beat even faster. He took the paper from her. There was an address on it. "Sister, you are..." Nan Qiuqiu blushed as she said softly, "Moran." With that, she walked elegantly over to the soul power detector. The small team leader felt his throat tighten, as he swallowed to himself. Many different expressions flitted across his face. No matter how dumb he was, he understood exactly what was going on at that moment. He could not wait for his shift to end, so that he could bring Nan Qiuqiu and the rest of them straight into Sunrise City. Shusansha, He Kai-tu, Ji Juechen, and Jing Ziyan followed the 2 women as they walked toward the soul power detector. Nan Qiuqiu only did so after she received instructions from afar via Huo Yuhao's spiritual power. If not, she would have exchanged a few more words with the team leader. Just when Nan Qiuqiu was 5 meters away from the soul power detector, a series of explosions could be heard in the distance. This caught the attention of both the trade delegations and the soldiers. Every single one of them looked in the direction of the sounds. In the nearby plains, one could see huge swathes of light flashing. The light shone in the shrubs and forests. No one could see what was causing it, but it made a huge ruckus. The small team leader, who was previously infatuated with Nan Qiuqiu, stood dazed for a few moments before he snapped to attention and shouted, "Quick, come in. Close the gates. There's an attack." As he said that, he raced toward the gates. Brother, what's going on?" "I'm so scared," Nan Qiuqiu said faintly. At this moment, both Yi Gai and she were trembling non-stop. "It's no big deal. Quick, enter the city with me. We have to close the gate soon." I don't know what's going on, the said team leader without thinking. As he spoke, he gestured to his subordinates to bring the soul power detector into the city. A joyous look flashed in Nan Qiuqiu's eyes. The 6 from the Tang sect rushed into the city with the soldiers. When the gates closed, Xu Sanxia, He Kaitu, Ji Juechen, and Jing Xian quickly slipped away into the city. Nan Qiuqiu and Yi Gai, however, were in no rush to leave. That was so scary. Brother, do we still need to be searched? Nan Qiuqiu cried out to the small team leader, whose face was grim as he prepared to ascend the city walls. The team leader waved at her and said, "Enter the city, quickly. We'll have time for it later." As he said that, he waved the piece of coarse paper he held in his hands. Nan Qiuqiu smiled and batted her eyelashes at him once more. Only then did she enter the city with Yi Gai. At this moment, no matter how lovesick the team leader was, he did not dare to abandon his post. The 6 of them from the Tang sect were able to enter the city just like that without having to be checked. They quickly regrouped. Xu Sanxia gave Nan Qiuqiu a thumbs up as he said, "Qiuqiu, you were excellent. I didn't know you were such a good actor." He was not the only one who fell for it. "Even I fell head over heels for you." "Ha ha." Nan Qiuqiu said unkindly, "Spare me your crap, or else I'll complain about you to Sister Nan Nan. Your words are honeyed, indeed. We got in not because of my acting skills, but rather because of Huo Yuhao's accurate character judgment." Yi Gai nodded and said, "Qiuqiu is right. While his plan sounded dangerous, it was actually pretty risk-free." He Kaitu said, "We did not have to wait for nothing in the past 2 months. Had we mounted our rescue attempt immediately after they locked up the prisoners, security would have been much tighter, and we would not have been given such an opportunity. Let's go and find a place to rest. We'll wait for Yuhao to enter." Outside the city, the series of explosions were naturally caused by Huo Yuhao. As for himself, he had escaped the scene of the explosion long ago. The origin of these explosions was the infernal gate. Huo Yuhao would not use necromancy in front of his companions, especially not in front of Yi Gai and her holy angel. However, this did not mean that he would not use it. His closed-door training for the past few months had benefited him greatly. One could say that he was able to fully master all of the various odd abilities he had learned during the past 7+ years of training and cultivation. His skills had reached a new level. At the same time, he became more mature and stable. He was finally able to overcome some of his mental barriers. With a simple necromantic spell, he summoned a group of skeletal soldiers and Jiangxia, which charged fearlessly toward the positions of the 2 Soul Engineer Legions. One could imagine the result. In less than 10 seconds after the appearance of these undead creatures, they were detected by the high-altitude surveillance Soul tool. They were then bombarded mercilessly by the Soul Engineer Legions. After 15 seconds of non-stop bombardment, the entire area where the Gate of Hell was located looked as if it had been trampled flat by a herd of wild animals. Every blade of grass was obliterated. What about Huo Yuhao? He had disguised himself with imitation after he unleashed his Gate of Hell. Then, he rejoined the trade delegations in the queue. Like them, he could not enter the city after the gates closed. No one knew when would the gates open once more. The sudden appearance of undead creatures would surely be investigated. However, it was likely that the investigation would yield no result. Huo Yuhao knew that after the investigation revealed nothing, the gates would open once more. Huo Yuhao followed his companions with spiritual detection. At this moment, he sensed that they were inside the city. "Now that's everyone's in, it's easier for me." Huo Yuhao smiled slightly as he looked at the giant soul power detector on the city wall. A cold smile crept across his face. "Do they think they really can stop me with those tools?" He observed his surroundings. The traders were complaining. He quietly left the trade delegation and sat down somewhere with shade. Many people from the trade delegations did the same. Since they could not enter the city, they took the time to rest. His actions were not suspicious at all. However, even though he was sitting down, he was extremely busy. His eyes were closed, and soul power flowed slowly through his body. His entire person entered a strange state. He unleashed his gentle spiritual power, as it carefully wrapped itself around the soul power in his body. Then, he quieted down the soul power in his body completely. Normally, the soul power in a soul master's body would circulate continuously during one's daily cultivation, forming a cycle. It was nearly impossible to stop that, but Huo Yuhao was able to do so. This method allowed him to seal his soul power with his spiritual power. This entire process took an hour. Only then was he able to prevent even the slightest hint of soul power from seeping out of his body. He temporarily became an ordinary person with extraordinary spiritual power. After he did this, Huo Yuhao slowly stood up as he felt his body adjust to its new state. When a soul master lost his soul power, he would definitely feel weak. However, he did not care too much about that. His walking pace had also slowed visibly. He checked the state of his body, and ascertained that his soul power had been completely compressed by his spiritual power and sealed in the corners of his dantian. Only then did Huo Yuhao rejoin the trade delegations. This time, he took advantage of their belief that the city gates would not reopen so quickly and quietly slipped to the front of the queue. The Soul Engineer legions did not take long to complete their checks. After an hour, they sent word to the city, and the gates of Sunrise City opened once again. The inspections of the trade delegations continued. After 15 minutes, Huo Yuhao stood in front of the soul power detector. The gentle green light swept over his body. To be fair, Huo Yuhao was quite nervous too. However, he had a backup plan. If his identity was exposed here, there was no way the Soul Engineer legions in the distance could strike him, as there were many civilians and traders around. With his power, he could charge into the city if he really needed to. Even if they searched the entire city, he was confident of escaping detection with all his various abilities. The soldiers looked at the soul power detector and then at Huo Yuhao, who was disguised as a laborer for one of the trade delegations. He waved his hand, indicating to Huo Yuhao that he could enter. Huo Yuhao sighed in relief. He was happy that his plan had worked. In other words, by suppressing his soul power with his spiritual power, he had now learned that he would be able to fool a soul power detector. There were two types of soul power detectors. The first type would detect its target's internal soul power, and the other would try and sense if its target was releasing soul power. The soul power detector on the city wall belonged to the second type. The combination of both soul tools would be ideal in rooting out soul masters, as it could detect soul masters who were concealing themselves and those who were pretending to be ordinary people. At this moment, Huo Yuhao was able to use his immense spiritual power to elude detection and enter the city. After he entered the gates, Huo Yuhao walked at a reasonable pace toward the inner part of the city. This was indeed a medium-sized city. The Sun-Moon Empire's cities were visibly different than those of the Star Luo Empire and the Heavenly Soul Empire. Even if the buildings were not particularly big, they were much bigger than the buildings in the original 3 countries of the Doluo continent. Many of them had pointed roofs, too. Huo Yuhao naturally did not pay attention to these, but instead was looking at the defenses inside the city. What shocked him most was that even as he moved forward, he could not detect any powerful auras inside the city. The city gates had many soul engineers manning and observing the surveillance soul tools, but none of them were particularly powerful. The people on the streets walked about as they carried on with their daily lives, no different from the citizens of any other city. As Sunrise City's defenses were tight, all Shrek Academy knew was that the prisoners were kept here. They did not know where were they held specifically, or if there were any powerful people guarding them. As a result, this operation was very difficult for the Tang sect. Of course, Shrek Academy had created some opportunities for them. First of all, they were given time. They were in no rush to enter the city. As long as full-scale war did not break out, they still had a chance to rescue the captives. This time, Elder Xian and the rest were well prepared when they caused the border commotion. The 8 Transcendent Doluo wreaked havoc near the border with tacit cooperation from the Star Luo Empire and the Heavenly Soul Empire. This caused quite a bit of trouble for the Sun Moon Empire. For now, they would devote all their attention to the border. Thus, Huo Yuhao's objectives were to first ascertain the location where the captives were kept, the strength of their guards, and the regional defenses of Sunrise City. This intelligence was more important than the rescue mission. Elder Xian had told Huo Yuhao before he left that his priority was reconnaissance. If they had a chance to save the captives, it would be great. If not, they should not take risks. Huo Yuhao soon discovered the marks left by his companions. However, he did not rush to meet them, but instead strolled leisurely through Sunrise City. He was dressed like a laborer. While he was tall for his age, his clothes were rough. His face and hairstyle were ordinary, and no one would notice him. As Huo Yuhao walked, he slowly released the suppression his spiritual power exerted on his soul power. How could it be easy to seal one's soul power with one's spiritual power? The feeling of a loss in power was horrid. Releasing the seal was troublesome, too. He could not release all of his compressed soul power at once. If he did let it burst forth, his passageways would be severely affected by the sudden outburst. All he could do was slowly release the seal, allow his soul power to seep out slowly, and circulate through his body once more. Huo Yuhao was in no rush. As he walked, he observed his surroundings. With his spiritual power, he was able to notice details most ordinary people could not even without using spiritual detection. He memorized the areas he walked through so any subsequent operations would be easier. He walked for 2 hours, and the sky started to dim. By then, he had released all his soul power and was back at his prime. This video will end here.